Yeah, my coffee.
We are live.
Okay. Um, Welcome everybody to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It's Wednesday, February 26th. And we are here briefly with Secretary Moore, who will introduce herself for the record in a sec. I'm Kathleen James from the Bennington 4 District.
Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury.
Richard Bailey, Lamoille 2. Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Derek Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Klepner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Laura? Representative Sibilia is on not well.
Representative Sibilia, Wyndham 2.
Great. All right. Secretary Moore, thanks for joining us on short notice.
My pleasure.
For the record, you are.
I am Julie Moore. I'm the Secretary of Natural Resources, and thank you for squeezing me in this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I had shared with Representative James and Representative Sibilia this morning sort of an alternate set of potential indicators that you might consider in H25. If it's all right, I'd like to share my screen and can sort of walk you through what that alternate bill text would look like. So hopefully you can see that now on your screen.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Great. So similar to the construct that was contained in H125, there would be a report back. Recognizing we will do our best to gather this information. The indicators I will show you are all based on data sets that we believe to be available with one exception that we are still digging into, but to try to give that sense of indicators relevant to the clean energy transition in Vermont and the impact it may be having on Vermonters. So what we are proposing is a combination of sort of leading and lagging indicators, as well as a bit of trend data, looking at 5-year trends over time, recognizing that some of the data sets are noisy and that they are, they tack and tie with weather, particularly when we're looking at heating fuel sales, and some of the elements around electricity utilization. If we have a particularly cold winter, it may mask otherwise what could be a hopefully steady downward trend. But looking at electric rates, distributed solar, including what has been installed and is on the ground, as well as applications that are going through the Certificate of Public Good process, looking at heating fuel sales, looking at home weatherization trends and trying to break out the homes receiving that service by income, looking at firms and workers in thermal sector trades over time, recognizing that workforce challenges are a key limiting factor on the amount of this work we're able to undertake. Tracking transportation fuel sales, again, 5 years of data feels important there. Looking at our progress towards meeting the electric vehicle charging infrastructure goals that are established in the Comprehensive Energy Plan and echoed in the Climate Action Plan. Looking at vehicle registrations across the different weight classes in terms of how many EVs and how many gas vehicles are being registered. And then that 9th one is the one that I still working to confirm we have the data to support, but I feel it's important to have some broad economic indicator. One I've seen in use in other jurisdictions is fossil fuel consumption per unit of economic output, but just want to make sure that is something we could actually commit to providing, and recognizing, Representative James, some of the dialogue we had when I was in committee, that we can make a good faith effort at this for the coming year and then refine it as needed, but just flagging generally that broad economic indicator I think feels important.
Oh, great. I think we have some questions. Representative Kleppner?
So two questions, Secretary Moore. The point number 4, homes weatherized by income quintile, that will only capture homes that are weatherized using state programs. Is that correct? Someone who does their own work on their own house won't show up in that data?
Correct. Someone who receives no incentive payments would not be reflected in that data.
And a question about number 9. Is the notion there that we in an expanding economy, for instance, we might see increased fossil fuel use, but at the same time, that use isn't going up as quickly as economic growth, which says we're getting more efficient with our fossil fuel use?
Correct.
What
Yes,
draw-
exactly. And there's sort of a parallel I was trying to strike with heating fuel sales, where there is an ability to look at heating degree days in a particular year to understand how cold it was, and then be able to make a comparison between the trend we're seeing, the gross trend we're seeing in heating fuel sales, and what we would expect to see based on the number of heating degree days. So it's trying to create a parallel construct there. Admittedly, I'm a little outside my area of expertise, and this is a place where I've phoned some friends in the commerce and labor departments to try and get a little better handle on what might be possible.
Thank you.
Yes, Rep. Campbell.
Secretary, this is very helpful, very, very helpful. Thank you. Much. One of the things that we've been talking about is what this report really wants to do. We're looking for a way to assess trends over time. So, and we weren't clear in the initial drafts whether this was an annual report or looking back 5 years. So I think we want both, actually. What we're trying to get at is an annual report, but starting with the previous 5 years worth of data. Is that something that you think you could do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what we also believe makes the most sense, and so that those 5-year trends would be updated annually in order to be able to have some sense of progress that's being made over time.
Well, suppose we just added another year each. So we start with the first report would be for the previous 5 years, and then we just keep adding an annual report to that. So over time, we can see as many years of data as we accumulate. Does that seem sensible?
I think that can be made to work. If you, I don't know why you would have necessarily, but if you had the opportunity to look at our clean water performance report, we do exactly that. We had a starting data set and then have continued to add the most recent year of data, but we continue to display all of the data that we have collected in that instance since, I think, 2016. At some point, I think those early years maybe will fall off of graphs because they'll become less meaningful and frankly just shrink what you're able to see in the most recent data. But certainly for a period of time, that approach makes a significant amount of sense.
Great. Okay. That's a clean water report.
Yeah, I can send to Jack a link to the clean water performance report. Just also as a point of reference, we are just at the sort of in the middle, the messy middle of work on a monitoring and assessing progress tool, which was one of the requirements of the Global Warming Solutions Act, and we'll be recommending sort of a set of indicators to track sort of a theme and variation on this. We have a consultant that's doing some initial work in that space and can provide an update on that, frankly, as part of the report we bring back to you next December.
Okay, terrific. So then one of the things we were trying to get at is something around the geographical location of these data points. And somebody along the line mentioned perhaps we could get it by county so that we're not, trying to parse it too finely, but we would still have some sense of geographical distribution. Does that seem possible?
I'm not sure that all of these data sets lend themselves to that, or that we're tracking them with that level of granularity, but can certainly go back to the kind of the raw data that we believe exists and see which of these may be able to lend themselves to that approach, if that would be of interest.
Okay. And I had some others, more detailed things, but I'll see if anybody else has questions first.
Just high level. So we walked through our latest draft just a little bit ago, and then tried to kind of sync it up with your letter and with your thoughts, Secretary Moore. And so just some things I flagged were this thought about by region, impact by region, that wherever possible. I think a driving goal of this is to try to see, I don't know where you went.
Laura's up there.
Yeah, I see Laura's hand, but anyway.
Oh, I can stop sharing my screen. I did have one more slide.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, which is just other considerations. I think there's some other kind of contextual pieces that probably would be helpful, at least in this initial report. And then maybe next session could talk about what an annual reporting requirement would look like. But some feedback to you all in terms of data gaps that we have discovered as we've gone about this work. What are the existing reports and requirements that we're relying on to make sure that they remain on the books, so to speak? Clearly, the Global Warming Solutions Act places emphasis on equity and just transition. And so having indicators that look at the benefits and burdens of the clean energy transition and can come back with some recommendations in that space. But the idea being that at least this initial report would both start to do the analysis of that initial set of indicators, and then come back with recommendations around modifications, changes, additions that we would propose to make going forward.
Great. Great. Okay. Representative Sibilia.
Yes, hi. I'm going to take my turn flogging the horse, but since I sponsored this bill, my intent with this bill is to understand specific places in Vermont that may be, we know that everyone is not experiencing the costs associated with the energy transition the same. We know that we have a shared goal of probably every member of the legislature and the administration on affordability. But if we are only looking at macro trends and not looking at some of the unique regional issues, for instance, we know that we have one utility that has significantly higher rates and is significantly more burdened in terms of repairs and climate change, and has significantly more uptake in terms of renewables. I don't know if they are losing access to gas stations, or so trying to. I noted that the data that you sent, which I think is really great, but I don't think any of it was actually regional. And macro data, I think, does not get after what we're looking at here in terms of identifying where we have Vermonters that are experiencing this transition differently than others. And I'll just remind you, the example that I've given is around telecommunications. And, had we known that, all the people within a 30-mile radius of Reedsboro were dropping their phone lines, or in all the big cities were dropping their phone lines, it might have occurred to us to say, ooh, we're going to have a public safety issue in rural Vermont that we should. So that's the kind of indicators that I'm hoping. And I'm guessing you may not have all of those at this point regionally, but that is really very specifically what I am hoping that we can eventually get to here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rep. Sibilia. So let's see, some of my high level of flags were similarly, I'd put down by region or location is very important to get to wherever and whenever we can. I wondered, Secretary, more about, we heard testimony earlier today from the ag about it sounds like the very readily available data they have on gas pumps. And so it sounded like that might be something we should add, maybe add Agency of Agriculture and add number and location of gas. And then we got into a little bit of a back and forth about whether we should be asking for the number and location of gas pumps or gas stations. I think we landed on gas stations, but it's whatever word accurately summarizes whatever we can get from ag with their metered pumps. And then we talked a little bit about, is this an annual report? It sounds like what you're thinking right now is, let's get this first one done, get it to you on December 15th, and that will include recommendations for how we move ahead.
Yes, and includes or also provides the opportunity for us to progress the work we are engaged in around our own measuring and assessing progress tool, and can report back to the committee on that this time next year as well.
Okay. We wondered about, just quickly, item number 7 in your list, the fast chargers in level 2. And we had a little conversation around whether item number 1, current electric rates and forecast electric rates, is it possible to see that data by just regular residential electric rates? And then we wondered about uptake or adoption and I guess the price of home EV chargers. And we wondered if number 1 on electric rates is where we could try to get some window into home charging rates and adoption. I don't really know the answer to that.
Number of customers on EV rates, I guess, simple would be the simplest.
Yeah, although my personal experience with Green Mountain Power is you don't necessarily have to sign up for a rate. You
No,
enroll by the time you tell your charger to access the grid. But
well,
yeah,
the EV rates have a peak rate and an off-peak rate. The off-peak rate is very attractive. So I think anybody that will sign up for the EV rates.
yes.
So yeah, we would only capture the people who have taken the trouble to sign up for EV rates, but even just knowing that would be useful.
Yeah, I can check back with the Department of Public Service and to see what they're tracking. I tried to queue to things where there are known existing data sets and no new data collection being initiated. I guess I would propose to you all that at least in this first round of this, we focus on already available data, and if there is new data collection that's sought, we can have a conversation then about what that would take. That's harder for me to commit to without any additional resources provided for this work.
Sure, thank you.
Rep. Sibilia?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. My hand was up in error.
Okay. Well, unless we have additional questions for Secretary Moore, I'd love to break in time for floor. Secretary Moore, I think our plan, just so that you know, our plan is, so we have your thoughts. We had our own draft. Ellen Chakowski from Ledge Council is going to listen to our little conversation here. And I just forgot we were supposed to drop breadcrumbs for her on YouTube. Like that would be a good thing to include in the draft, but we forgot to do that. However, she's going to listen to this little 20-minute meeting, and then she is going to try to come back with a draft that incorporates some of the thoughts, some of the conversation we had earlier today about her draft, your ideas, which I think everybody is very open to, and try to come back with a draft for us at 11 o'clock on Friday morning. That's just FYI for you. And then we are hoping to vote this out the week we get back from town meeting break.
I personally will be on annual leave on Friday, but will ask a member of our climate office to review that walkthrough and can certainly follow up with you on any additional feedback or input we would have during town meeting week.
Great, and we'll make sure we send it to you. As soon as we have it from Ellen, we'll make sure to send you a copy.
Thank you. And I will send a link to the Clean Water Performance Report to Jack so he can distribute it to all of you.
Okay, and duly noted. Did we talk about this already? So you're raising your hand for A&R to take the lead on this. We had it in DBS. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think given the work we are doing, we are leading on the measuring and assessing progress tool. I think it does make sense to have this sit with the climate office in A&R.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for the last minute joining in.
You're welcome.
And appreciate it. We will talk to you again. And Jack, we can